Everything has changed in the Jim Jones trial, but you won't believe what you're about to learn. Cameron dropped a bombshell in court that could harm Chrissy Lampin's career. Everyone assumed the trial was about Jim Jones, but Chrissy's shocking secret, which has been kept hidden from everyone, is set to be revealed to the world. Here's the twist. Jim Jones may now use the truth that Chrissy tried to hide from everyone to his advantage. This case isn't just about Jim Jones. It's also about Chrissy's retaliation. What comes next? This drama isn't limited to the streets. If you believe it's simply another trial, you're completely mistaken. The consequences this time are two to ignore. Jim Jones is facing allegations that might destroy his entire image. But in the midst of all this drama, Cameron just dropped a bombshell that nobody saw coming. Imagine the courthouse door swinging open and the world pausing, all eyes on the trial of the year. The person usually expresses his opinions and causes controversy. But what he disclosed about Chrissy Lampkin was unexpected because it wasn't just about Jim Jones anymore. The courtroom was supposed to be about him and his criminal accusations. But all of a sudden became the backdrop for a far bigger controversy and drama. And Cameron was the one who made it about Chrissy disclosing secrets that no one knew existed. Story that has dared to be revealed up to this point. Let me set the scene for you. Jim was the center of attention during this trial, and everyone knew that he was there. Legal issues surrounded his business. His reputation was damaged. And accusations regarding his involvement in a series had already raised doubts about Cameron's loyalty to the company. His financial dealings, and of course the fabled drop set. Image that Cameron and the others had built from the ground up. But something unexpected happened in the courtroom. Instead of just concentrating on the accusations against Jim Jones, the court suddenly changed course when Cameron, in the more significant than any of us had ever imagined. What could be worse than the tension between Cameron Well and Jim Jones? That's where the tale takes a wild turn. Chrissy Lampkin, also known as Jim Cameron, revealed everything in a single dramatic moment in that courtroom, setting off a chain of events that would leave many in astonishment. Jones's long-eyed boyfriend and the reality TV star had been hiding something for years, something so painful and secret that when Cameron accused her of engaging in some questionable behavior, her hidden past came crashing into the light. The tension in the courtroom was palpable, and the accusation against Chrissy, the woman who has stayed by her side, was evident. Cameron didn't merely imply that Chrissy was involved in dubious financial activities. He dropped the bombshell that she had been secretly working with some very powerful individuals that Jim didn't know about. Jim's side had been playing both sides of the fence for a long time. Why did Cameron decide to make this shocking revelation during the Jim Jones trial? What was the driving force behind Cameron's public declaration about the crew's machines? Or was there a deeper purpose at play? The music industry was establishing trends in creating iconic moments, and everyone admired their friendships and commitment to one another. But behind the surface, there were flaws, and those fissures were starting to show. Cameron, who had always had a tumultuous relationship with Jim, had kept quiet about the internal turmoil at Dipset for years. But now, in the midst of Jim's trial, he saw an opportunity to learn about Chrissy's involvement in something far more serious that would have contributed to Jim's collapse. This secret that Cameron revealed went beyond Chrissy's personal life and involved members of a criminal network who have been dragging. You have to wonder how Christy felt about it all. The strings behind the scenes in this revelation might destroy everything. Jim Jones's reputation as a music business figure and his past fan loyalty are all up for grabs. Before we get ahead of ourselves, let's take a moment to consider the significance of Cameron's bombshell, because this isn't just about a trial. Was she caught off guard? Was she part of the conspiracy all along? Or is there more to this story than anyone is willing to acknowledge? You must ask the question, what was Chrissy's involvement truly? How far did this conspiracy go? And who else was involved in these shady dealings? Because this is about treachery, secrets, and loyalties that are being challenged in the most public way conceivable. What does this mean for Jim and Chrissy's relationship? Will this trial result in an irreversible split, not just in their personal life, but also in their relationship? Jim Jones is only a pawn in a much larger game that he never even saw coming. Their whole public image, whether Jim has been drawn into a dispute, whether Chrissy is the one who attracted him, or whether she is merely a victim of circumstances, of these questions are swirling around. And we haven't even touched the surface yet, but cling on tight, because as the courtroom erupted in chaos after Cameron's shocking revelation, which the entire world witnessed, we're going to go deeper into the repercussions of his confession, and trust me, it's going to get much more explosive. Confusion. Chrissy Lampkin, who had been Jim Jones' pillar of support for years, found herself at the center of a tempest she had not anticipated. It was not deeper connections, underground links. And let's dissect the hidden agenda that was being revealed, because this is where things become really ugly. Previously portrayed as the devoted wife who stuck by her partner no matter what, Chrissy was suddenly the subject of grave accusations that Cameron wasn't really throwing forth baseless claims. He was discussing real relationships with dangerous individuals who might ruin lives with a single phone call. But Chrissy was purportedly connected to them. The claim was that Chrissy had been working covertly. People from Jim Jones' past participants who operated in the shadows, dragging threads in the world of crime, corruption, and deceit. Even more shocking was the fact that Jim Jones was unaware of Chrissy's involvement with these dubious individuals and the secrets that she had shared with them. According to Cameron, Jim Jones had been kept in the dark about Chrissy's activities. Cameron painted an image of a man who had been blinded by love and royalty. But now that Chrissy's secret life was fully known to everyone but Jim, let's go back in time and ask why a woman who had been by Jim's side for years would abruptly get engaged with those who had ruined him. The concerns were getting more and more pressing. Was this all a sham, or was there something more sinister going on? Let's talk about how the public responded to this, because you have to. Because when something like this happens, the fans, the media, and even the people closest to these celebrities start to inquire. The fans who had previously supported Jim and Chrissy and thought they were the ideal couple are the ones who watched. What do you think the fans were saying when they found out about Chrissy's alleged involvement in this mess? They were furious to see it, and why wouldn't they have been? Jim had always been their guy, the rapper, and now everything was up for grabs with their every move on reality TV, who remained faithful and sincere. But all of a sudden, he was being pulled into something far bigger than he could have ever imagined, according to people who were allegedly close to the situation. Many accused Chrissy of taking advantage of Jim for gain, with some even going so far as to suggest that she had been using Jim's reputation and notoriety to advance in her career while working against him covertly in the background. Shocking and disappointing fans who had once loved the relationship, and making them wonder, is this what does true loyalty look like? And let's not overlook the media, which some outlets were eager to portray Chrissy as a gold hunter, while others accused her of using Jim strings as a puppet master to push her own goal behind the scenes. But the truth is that nobody knew what to think, because the story was evolving hourly and seemed to be becoming more complicated with each new piece that surfaced. However, this is where things take a turn for the worse, because Cameron didn't stop at blaming Chrissy. No. He went far further and started revealing some very personal information. Cameron claimed that Jim wasn't only unaware of Chrissy's activities, but also unaware of struggles. Cameron claims that Jim Jones had been making poor choices for years, participating in dubious ventures and associating with people who were using him as a pawn, people who Jim only about taking advantage of him in an audacious move to gain their own. Cameron used names of well-known companies that you wouldn't typically associate with Jim Jones. These names weren't just indicative of business practices. Jim's relationship with these people was more than just. According to Cameron, Jim had been surrounded by individuals who had fed him lies and led him down a path that was sure to result in disaster. which turned out to be right at his doorstep. This was both professional and personal. And what's even more shocking is Cameron didn't merely discuss these connections in broad strokes. Rather, he provided specific details about Jim's actual level of engagement, making it clear that Jim had been involved in these activities for years but had never realized it, whether out of ignorance or anything else. Denial or outright disdain. Jim was now facing the consequences of his own choices and actions that were connected to the very people Chrissy had been secretly working with. Take a moment to process that. It's one thing to be involved in something, but it's quite another entirely when you discover that the individuals you trusted the most and who were closest to you were leading you into this catastrophe. Which is precisely what Cameron was doing. It seems that he was stating that Chrissy's treachery was not only personal but also business-related. And Jim, the stakes were higher than anyone could have predicted. And as the courtroom drama developed, it became clear that this wasn't just about one person. He was the one who had been blinded by love and enmeshed in a game that he didn't even realize he was playing. Jim's career was not the only thing at stake in this case. As the courtroom drama progressed, it became clear that the stakes went far beyond a personal embarrassment and that it was about an entire organization failing. The entire empire they built was being ripped apart. The fan base was in chaos. The industry was watching. And the legal ramifications were just beginning to surface, whether it was JimJones's public image being ruined or Chrissy Lampkin's private dealings being exposed. The truth is that everyone is avoiding this subject because it wasn't just a personal issue. It was a career time bomb that was about to blow up. That when Cameron revealed the information, the world wasn't only watching the couples. In addition to being a rapper, JimJones was a cultural icon and a leader in the hip-hop industry. Now he was embroiled in a legal nightmare that could potentially alter everything. Dirty Laundry was broadcast, and it was seeing the collapse of an entire brand. When press reports surfaced, quote, lawyers were on high alert for allegations that these weren't just slanderous rumors but also actionable information about Jim's past relationships with the dubious individuals who were allegedly connected to the money trails and the potential for criminal responsibility were all starting to come to light. And who could overlook the federal probes that started to encircle the case? Law enforcement had already shown a keen interest in Jim's prior connections, partly after government authorities, according to Cameron's sources. What did this mean for JimJones and Chrissy? The most obvious effect was the potential legal battles. Both Jim and Chrissy might face significant legal repercussions and were looking into money laundering, racketeering, and possibly more serious criminal behavior. Whether or not Jim was actively involved in illegal activity, his associations with the wrong people and his refusal to act on the warning signs could have been enough to bring him down. But there was something that made him vulnerable. 2 years in prison if things went wrong. Significantly more significant was the public outcry in this case. The business had already begun to turn against them. Former partners were separating. Brands were erecting barriers. And the streets were rife with rumors that nobody wanted to be associated with the sinking ship and the harm caused by this. Trial was limited to young brands. Companies and networks that had been associated with Jim and Chrissy for years were forced to face the uncomfortable question of whether we should still support them after when the truth hit hard. Calls from sponsors and partners started to flow in, and many people were withdrawing from their ties out of fear of how public it would be. For someone like JimJones, who was once unbeatable in the hip-hop industry, entire reputations are on the line. Collaborations and sponsorships with some of the biggest names in the industry. The pressure was mounting and everyone feel it, and Chrissy's condition wasn't getting any better. The media had already referred to her as the ultimate villain, and Jim's years of support and loyalty were now being overshadowed by her rumored secret life. Industry insiders were also turning against her. Fans began to accuse her of taking advantage of Jim and using their relationship as a springboard for her own career, which was a horrible turn of events as the public began to question her loyalty and sincere intentions. Destiny, the same people who had once praised her power, now saw her as a cunning, cold man who had been playing a game for years. And let's not even talk about Cameron. The drama began the moment he opened his mouth. On Cameron, who was known for his scathing remarks and unrestrained demeanor. Cameron wasn't backing down. Kay wasn't merely exposing Chrissy. He was destroying everything Jim had started. Let's take a moment to consider the likely legal repercussions. Had Chrissy been associated with the wrong gang, she might have faced charges. Was Cameron truly seeking revenge, or was he trying to protect Jim from a reality he was too blind to see? The charges of conspiracy, fraud, and potentially racketeering were not minor ones. They were serious felonies that might put her in jail for years. Jim's case was more complicated. He might be charged indirectly because of his connections to known criminals. Jim was facing a dreadful reality. He was caught up in a web of illegal activities that he may not have even been aware of. But the law doesn't always care that ignorance isn't an excuse. What about the public relations disaster? It was clear that Jim was no longer the untouchable guy he once was, and his devoted fans were beginning to question everything. The rapper, who had previously been a hero to many, had to deal with the fallout from his treachery and secrets. But now for the last query. After everything that has been revealed, do Jim and Chrissy have any chance of reestablishing their careers, marriages, and lives? Or is this the end of an era? One thing is for sure. Though this trial scandal and the revelations that followed it, will JimJones' name will always be associated with one of the most shocking incidents in hip-hop history. But the story isn't over yet. The courtroom drama and legal battles are still going on, and the fans are left to pick up the pieces. Time will tell if JimJones and Chrissy Lampkin will ever get past this. But for now, we're left with the fallout. The truth has been revealed, and there's no turning back now. This is the terrible truth about JimJones and Chrissy Lampkin's collapsing business. However, what will happen to them next? Will they be able to keep going? Or will this be the end of their career, as we know? The legal ramifications will be more severe than the scandal itself. And most importantly, how far will these repercussions really go? This is a developing topic, and you don't want to miss out on what comes next. So please leave a comment below. Do you think Cameron intentionally tried to harm Jim's career? Or is there more to than meets the eye? If you're interested in hearing your thoughts on this significant topic, please remember to like this video, appalled by these revelations, and tell your friends about it to ensure everyone is aware of the truth. Therefore, sign up for Keep Abreast of all the breaking news as we continue to uncover additional such shocking tales turn people on. Notifications to ensure you never miss an incredible now. This is just the hat, a lot more to discover. Many. Thanks for seeing. Until the next time. Maintain your peeled eyes, because in the YES, in the SHO, in the world of celebrity drama, action in fiction is always more bizarre.